The massive crystal hall floated in space near the center of the galaxy. Inside, creatures from 847 different worlds sat in their assigned seats. Some looked like giant insects, others were made of pure energy. A few breathed methane instead of oxygen, but they all shared one thing: they hated humans. Counselor Vextar stood at the center podium. His blue skin glowed as he spoke with his mind instead of his mouth. The translation machines turned his thoughts into words that every species could understand. "Fellow council members," Vextar said, "we face our greatest threat in 10,000 years. The humans have gone too far." A hologram appeared above the podium. It showed a map of the galaxy with red dots spreading like a disease. Each red dot was a human colony. "Look at this madness," Vextar continued. 300 years ago, humans could barely leave their own planet. Now they have colonies on over 200 worlds. Most civilized species take 5,000 years to spread this far. Growls and angry clicks filled the hall. The Corvin Empire representative, a creature that looked like a walking tank, slammed his metal fist on his desk. "They ignore our shipping lanes. Their warships fly wherever they want. That's not the worst part," said the ethereal collective speaker. Her voice sounded like music, but her words were full of anger. "They make friends with primitive species we decided were too stupid to join galactic society." More angry sounds filled the hall. The council had rules about which species could join their group. A species had to prove they were smart enough and civilized enough. Most species failed these tests. The humans never even took the tests. Vextar waved his hand and the hologram changed. Now it showed human ships landing on primitive worlds. Humans were giving technology to species that still lived in caves. They were teaching math to creatures that could barely count to 10. The humans call it uplifting, Vextar said with disgust. "We call it chaos. They're destroying the natural order of the galaxy." In the back corner of the hall sat Ambassador Chen Wei. She was the only human in the room. She looked small compared to the giant aliens around her. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple style. She wore a plain blue uniform with no decorations. While the aliens shouted and waved their arms, she sat quietly and listened. "The humans refuse to follow our laws," continued a representative from the Crystalline Federation. "They won't pay taxes to the council. They won't ask permission before exploring new worlds. They act like they own the galaxy because they think they're special," hissed a snake-like creature from the Venom systems. "They think because they're good at fighting, they can do whatever they want." Vextar nodded. "The humans have proven they're dangerous. Their military grows stronger every year. Their weapons get more powerful. Their ships get faster. If we don't stop them now, they might become too strong to control." The hall erupted in agreement. Creatures roared, buzzed, and screamed their support. Some shot flames from their mouths. Others changed colors to show their anger. "I call for a vote," Vextar announced. "All in favor of giving the humans one final warning?" Every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage in the room went up. The vote was 846 to 0. Chen Wei didn't vote. Humans weren't allowed to vote on council matters. Vextar turned to face the human ambassador. His glowing eyes looked down at her with contempt. "Ambassador Chen Wei of the human species, the Galactic Council has reached a decision." Chen Wei stood up slowly. She was tiny compared to the aliens around her, but she didn't look scared. Her face showed no emotion at all. "The human species will cease all expansion immediately," Vextar declared. "You will submit to council oversight of all your military forces. You will abandon all alliances with primitive species. You will pay compensation for the chaos you have caused." The hall fell silent. Every alien in the room stared at the small human woman. "You have 30 galactic standard days to comply with these demands," Vextar continued. "If you refuse, the combined fleets of the Galactic Council will remove humanity from the galaxy permanently." Chen Wei listened to every word. Her expression never changed. She didn't argue or try to negotiate. She didn't ask questions or beg for mercy. She just stood there, calm and quiet. "Do you understand these terms, Ambassador?" Vextar asked. "Yes," Chen Wei replied. Her voice was steady and clear. "And what is humanity's response to this final warning?" Chen Wei looked around the hall. She saw the hatred in their alien eyes. She saw their weapons and their warships through the crystal walls. She knew they expected her to be afraid. They expected her to plead for more time or better terms. Instead, she said, "I'll relay your message to my government." That was it. No begging, no threats, no dramatic speeches. Just a simple promise to deliver their message. The aliens looked confused. They had expected tears or anger or fear. Instead, they got nothing. The human woman was like a stone. Chen Wei turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent hall. Every alien watched her go. She didn't look back. As the door closed behind her, the aliens began to whisper among themselves. Many felt disappointed. They had wanted to see the human break down and cry. They had wanted to feel powerful and important. "She's afraid," one alien said. "Humans always act tough, but they're cowards inside." "Did you see how quickly she agreed to take our message?" Another added. "She knows humanity can't fight all of us." Vextar nodded with satisfaction. 30 days from now, the human problem will be solved. They'll submit to our authority like every other species has. The other council members agreed. They had seen this pattern before. A young species would try to challenge the council. The council would threaten them. The young species would realize they were outmatched and give up. It always worked the same way. But as Chen Wei's ship flew away from the crystal hall, something felt different. The human woman hadn't looked defeated. She hadn't looked scared. She had looked calm. Too calm. Some of the older council members began to feel uneasy. In their thousands of years of experience, they had learned to read other species. Fear had a smell. Defeat had a sound. Submission had a feeling. They had sensed none of these things from the human ambassador. Chen Wei's ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying the council's ultimatum back to human space. Behind her, the most powerful alliance in the galaxy prepared to celebrate their victory. They had given humanity an impossible choice: surrender or die. What they didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this exact moment for 300 years. And they had already chosen their answer. The council thought they were ending a problem. Instead, they had just started a war they couldn't possibly win. Because they had made the same mistake that every enemy of humanity had made throughout history. They had underestimated what humans were willing to do to protect their freedom. The message reached Earth exactly 18 hours after Chen Wei left the council chambers. In the Global Defense Council's war room, deep beneath the Swiss mountains, Admiral Sarah Torres read the alien ultimatum for the third time. 30 days, she said to the room full of military leaders. They're giving us 30 days to surrender everything we've built. General Marcus Kim, head of Army Operations, laughed bitterly. Generous of them. Most conquerors don't give any warning at all. This isn't about generosity, replied Dr. James Harrison, the Defense Council's chief strategist. They want us to be afraid. They want us to spend 30 days worrying about their big fleet coming to destroy us. Admiral Torres pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked council territories. Blue dots showed human colonies. The red greatly outnumbered the blue. Let's look at the numbers, Torres said. Intelligence reports show the council has 50,000 warships. We have 8,000 official vessels in our fleet. Those are terrible odds, muttered Colonel Sarah Parker from the Marine Corps. Are they? Dr. Harrison asked with a small smile. Tell me, Admiral, what did our war game suggest would be acceptable losses against a numerically superior force? Torres checked her datapad. Computer models indicate we could achieve victory with a 6-to-1 disadvantage, assuming enemy forces use standard galactic tactics. And the Council uses standard galactic tactics? Of course they do. It's their own book of rules. They wrote it. Torres paused as she realized what Harrison was suggesting. You think we can actually win this? I think, Harrison said, that the Council made several critical errors in their assessment of human capabilities. He waved his hand, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed what appeared to be empty space, but with strange readings marked in green. Error number 1, Harrison continued. They counted our official fleet. They never detected our ghost fleets. Gasps filled the room. Even some of the highest-ranking officers didn't know about the ghost fleets. Ships built in secret, hidden in dark matter clouds and empty space between solar systems. How many ghost fleets? Admiral Torres asked. 47 fleets, each with approximately 1,000 vessels. We've been building them for 200 years. The room fell silent. 55,000 ships total. The numbers were suddenly much more even. Error number 2, Harrison continued. They assumed our allies were weak. They never realized some of our primitive friends have very interesting capabilities. The display showed a sector of space marked as empty on all galactic charts. But human sensors showed thousands of ships moving through the darkness. "The void nomads," whispered Admiral Torres. "We thought they were extinct." "The Council thought they were extinct," Harrison corrected. "We've been trading with them for 50 years. They've been waiting for someone brave enough to challenge the Council's authority." Colonel Parker leaned forward. "What kind of ships do the void nomads have?" "The kind that can phase in and out of normal space. The kind that can appear inside enemy shields. The kind that make traditional space combat obsolete." More shocked silence filled the room. "Error number 3, Harrison continued. "They gave us 30 days to prepare. They thought we would spend that time being afraid. Instead, we're going to spend it getting ready to end their empire." "What about our colonies?" asked General Kim. "Our civilians? If we fight, they'll try to destroy our worlds." "That brings us to error number 4, Harrison replied. "They think we fight like they do. Big fleets smashing into each other until one side gives up. But humans don't fight fair. We fight smart." The display changed again, showing Council territories with strange symbols overlaid on top. "For 300 years, every human explorer, trader, and diplomat has been gathering intelligence. We know where their important facilities are. We know their communication networks. We know their supply routes. We know which leaders live where and what they care about most." Admiral Torres understood immediately. Decapitation strikes take out their leadership and command structure. Exactly. Why fight 50,000 ships when you can make those ships lose contact with their commanders? Why attack their colonies when you can disable their ability to coordinate attacks on ours? Dr. Harrison walked to the center of the room. His voice became deadly serious. "The Council thinks this is about territory or resources or pride. It's not. This is about the future of civilization in this galaxy. They want to keep the old system where a few powerful species control everyone else. We want a system where every species has a chance to grow and contribute." He looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leaders. "The Council believes might makes right. We're going to prove they're wrong. We're going to show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than domination, that lifting others up is better than keeping them down." President Maria Santos, who had been listening quietly from the back of the room, finally spoke. "Dr. Harrison, what are you recommending?" "Protocol Omega, Madam President. Full implementation." Every person in the room understood what that meant. Protocol Omega wasn't just a military operation. It was a complete transformation of galactic civilization. It meant the end of the old order and the birth of something new. "The risks?" President Santos asked. "If we fail, humanity becomes extinct," Harrison replied honestly. "If we succeed, we free every species in the galaxy from Council tyranny." President Santos was quiet for a long moment. Outside the war room, Earth continued its normal life. People went to work. Children played in parks. Families ate dinner together. None of them knew their entire species was about to bet everything on one massive gamble. "How long do you need?" the president finally asked. 72 hours, Madam President. We can be ready to move in 72 hours. Then you have authorization for Protocol Omega. May God help us all." As the meeting ended and the military leaders rushed to prepare their forces, a strange calm settled over human space. This wasn't the panic or fear the Council expected. This was something much more dangerous. This was humanity getting ready to do what they did best, what they had always done when faced with impossible odds and tyrannical enemies. They were getting ready to fight for their freedom, and for the freedom of every other species brave enough to stand with them. The Council had given them 30 days to surrender. But humans had already decided on their answer 300 years ago. The first time they met the Council and realized what kind of galaxy they lived in, the answer was simple: no. And now they were going to make that answer heard across every star system in the galaxy. Councillor Vexitar was drinking his morning nutrition fluid when the emergency alert reached his private chambers. The holographic display showed a priority message from the Corvin Empire's military command. The message was only 2 words. Kethmore gone. Vexitar nearly dropped his drink. Kethmore was the Corvin Empire's strongest fortress world. It had shields that could stop a supernova. It had weapons that could destroy entire fleets. It had never fallen to any enemy in 5,000 years of war. Gone? Vexitar spoke into his communication device. What does gone mean? The Corvin commander's voice crackled through the speaker. Gone means not there anymore, Counselor. The planet, the star system, the space stations, the defense platforms, everything. Just empty space where Kethmore used to be. Vextar felt his blue skin turn pale. That's impossible. Planets don't just disappear. Tell that to our missing billion soldiers, the Corvin replied. And before you ask, no, we didn't detect any weapons fire. No explosions. No energy readings. One moment Kethmore was there, the next moment it wasn't. Before Vextar could respond, another emergency alert came through. This one was from the Ethereal Collective. Their floating research cities had lost all power simultaneously. Millions of the galaxy's smartest beings were trapped in dead ships floating through space. Then came a third alert. The Zephyrian telepathic network had gone silent. For the first time in 10,000 years, the telepathic species couldn't speak to each other with their minds. Vextar rushed to the council chambers. He found chaos. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting about mysterious attacks on their territories. Military bases losing power. Communication networks failing. Ships suddenly unable to move. But the strangest part was what hadn't been attacked. Civilian populations were untouched. Hospitals were still running. Schools were still open. Food distribution centers were working perfectly. In some cases, these facilities were working better than before. This makes no sense, declared the Crystalline Federation representative. What kind of enemy destroys military targets but improves civilian infrastructure? The Venom Systems ambassador slithered forward. It's psychological warfare. They want us to know they can reach any target they choose. But who is they? Asked the representative from the gas giant consortium. We haven't detected any enemy fleets. Our sensors show nothing. Vextar was studying the reports when his aide whispered in his ear. Counselor, there's a human ship requesting permission to dock. A human ship? Now? Vextar was confused. But the 30-day deadline hasn't passed. They still have 28 days to respond to our ultimatum. The ship is carrying Ambassador Chen Wei, sir. She says she has humanity's official response. The council chamber fell silent. Everyone stared at Vextar, waiting for his decision. Let her dock, he said finally. We'll hear what the humans have to say. 20 minutes later, the chamber doors opened. Ambassador Chen Wei walked in, just as calm and quiet as before. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her came representatives from species the council had never seen in their chambers. A creature that looked like a giant dog walked on 2 legs and wore a translator around his neck. A being made of living crystal sang instead of speaking. An insect-like creature with dozens of arms carried a small computer that spoke for her. What is the meaning of this? Vextar demanded. These primitive species have no right to enter our chamber. Chen Wei spoke for the first time. Counselor Vextar, I present the representatives of the Galactic Alliance. We're here to discuss the future of interstellar relations. Galactic Alliance? Vextar was confused. What alliance? The Council is the only legitimate government in this galaxy. Not anymore, Chen Wei replied simply. She gestured, and one of her companions activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy map, but now it looked very different. Blue dots representing the new alliance covered nearly half of all inhabited systems. 237 species have joined the Galactic Alliance in the past 72 hours, Chen Wei announced. We represent approximately 60% of the galaxy's population. Gasps and angry shouts filled the council chamber. The Corvin representative slammed his fist on his desk. This is impossible. Most of these species are too primitive to have interstellar governments. You're correct, Chen Wei agreed. They were too primitive. But that was before humanity shared our technology with them. Before we helped them build ships and communication networks. Before we showed them they didn't have to accept being called unworthy by species who had simply been lucky enough to develop faster. The dog-like creature stepped forward. His translator made his barks into words. I am Ambassador Howlett Stars of the Canine Pack Builders. For 3,000 years, your council ignored our request to join galactic civilization. You said we were too stupid to understand advanced technology, but the humans believed in us. They taught us. They treated us as equals. The crystal being sang a melody that her translator turned into speech. I am voice of mountain song from the silicon-based architects. Your council said we were too slow to be useful, but humans gave us time to think and space to grow. They didn't try to change us. They helped us become better versions of ourselves. One by one, the Alliance representatives spoke. Each told the same story. The council had rejected them or ignored them. Humanity had welcomed them and helped them grow. Vextar felt anger building in his chest. You're trying to destroy the natural order of the galaxy. There are rules about which species can handle advanced technology. Rules you made, Chen Wei pointed out. Rules designed to keep power in the hands of a few species while keeping everyone else dependent and weak. Those rules exist for good reasons, shouted the ethereal collective representative. Primitive species can't be trusted with dangerous technology. Really? Chen Wei asked. Because in the past 72 hours, your primitive allies have shown remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed your military forces completely. Instead, they disabled them without causing unnecessary casualties. They could have attacked your civilians. Instead, they improved your medical facilities and food distribution systems. The chamber fell silent as the council members realized what Chen Wei was saying. You mean? Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. The attacks on your military installations were carried out by species you dismissed as too primitive to matter. Chen Wei confirmed. The void nomads who you thought were extinct. The deep space swimmers who you thought were just space-dwelling animals. The quantum dancers who you thought were too strange to be intelligent. But how? Demanded the Corvin representative. Our intelligence services never detected any of these species building weapons. Because you never looked, Chen Wei replied. You were so convinced of your own superiority that you stopped paying attention to what others were capable of. Meanwhile, humanity spent 300 years building relationships with everyone you ignored. She walked to the center of the chamber, where Vextar stood frozen with shock. The Council's authority was based on the belief that you were the strongest and smartest species in the galaxy, but you're not. You're just the ones who got powerful first and then used that power to prevent anyone else from growing. This is rebellion, Vextar declared. We won't allow it. You don't have a choice, Chen Wei said calmly. Your military forces are disabled. Your communication networks are down. Your allies are switching sides. The galaxy has voted, Councillor Vextar, and they voted for change. As if to prove her point, alerts began flashing on displays throughout the chamber. More council species were losing contact with their fleets. More systems were declaring independence from council authority. The old order was collapsing, and there was nothing the council could do to stop it. Chen Wei turned to address the entire chamber. The Galactic Alliance offers membership to any species that wants to join. We offer equality, cooperation, and mutual respect. We offer a galaxy where every species has a voice and a chance to contribute. She paused, looking directly at Vextar. Or you can continue to believe that might makes right. You can try to restart your war machines and reconquer your territories. But understand this, you're not fighting just humanity anymore. You're fighting everyone you've oppressed for the past 10,000 years. The chamber erupted in chaos as the council representatives realized their empire was ending. But Chen Wei and her allies remained calm. They had already won. The question now was whether the old council would accept the new reality peacefully, or whether they would fight a war they couldn't possibly win. The Corvin Emperor's war room was a monument to military power. Holographic displays showed the positions of 10,000 warships. Battle computers calculated attack strategies. Weapon specialists prepared for the greatest war in galactic history. Status report, Emperor Kralvash demanded. His armor clanked as he moved between the display screens. We've restored contact with 60% of our fleet, reported his military commander. The remaining ships are still without power, but our engineers believe they can fix them within a week. And our allies? The situation is complicated, my emperor. Kralvash turned to stare at his commander. In Corvin culture, complicated usually meant bad news that no one wants to deliver. Explain. The commander activated a galactic map. Red dots showed remaining council forces. Blue dots showed alliance territories. But most concerning were the gray dots, neutral systems that were waiting to see which side would win. 17 council species have declared neutrality, the commander reported. 8 have officially joined the Human Alliance. The Crystalline Federation lost half their systems to independence movements. The ethereal collective's research cities are refusing orders from their home government. Emperor Kralvash felt his anger building. Cowards and traitors, all of them. What about our military strength? Can we still win a direct confrontation? In a traditional battle, yes. Our remaining forces outnumber the known human fleets 3-1. Then we attack immediately. Show the galaxy what happens to species that challenge the established order. But before the Emperor could issue his attack orders, alerts began flashing across every screen in the war room. Enemy contacts were appearing throughout Corvin space. Report, Kralvash shouted. Unknown vessels appearing in multiple systems, the tactical officer replied. They're everywhere, sir. Inside our defensive perimeters. Next to our space stations, some are actually inside our shield barriers. The Emperor stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Hundreds of ships had appeared simultaneously across dozens of star systems. It should have been impossible. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from one of the unknown vessels. Put it on screen. The main display activated, showing the bridge of a human warship. A woman in a simple military uniform looked directly at the Emperor. Her name tag read, Captain Rivera. Emperor Kral Vash, Captain Rivera said politely. I'm Captain Marcus Rivera of the Alliance Vessel Determination. I need to speak with you about the current situation. You dare enter Corvin space without permission? The Emperor roared. This is an act of war. Actually, Captain Rivera replied calmly. This is an act of preventing war. My ship and the others you're tracking are here to make sure no unnecessary violence occurs. Unnecessary violence? You've invaded our territory. Captain Rivera looked genuinely confused. Invaded? Emperor, we're not here to conquer anything. We're here to offer your forces a choice. What kind of choice? You can power down your weapons, return to your home systems, and wait while your government decides whether to join the Alliance. Or you can attack us, we'll disable your ships without harming your crews, and then you'll wait while your government decides whether to join the Alliance. The Emperor felt his face turning purple with rage. You're threatening the Corvin Empire? No, sir, Captain Rivera said patiently. I'm explaining reality. Your ships can't hurt us. Our ships can disable yours anytime we choose. The only variable is how many of your people get hurt in the process. Impossible. Corvin shields are impenetrable. Captain Rivera looked off-screen for a moment, then nodded to someone. Suddenly, every system in the Emperor's war room shut down. The lights went out. The displays went dark. The air recycling system stopped working. Then just as suddenly, everything came back online. Your shields are very impressive, Captain Rivera admitted. Unfortunately, they don't work against weapons that phase into your ships from parallel dimensions. They also don't stop attackers who can quantum tunnel through solid matter. The Emperor's military commander whispered in his ear. Sir, our sensors detect no weapons fire, no energy beams, no projectiles. They're somehow reaching our systems without using any technology we understand. How? The Emperor demanded. Captain Rivera smiled sadly. Emperor, for 300 years humanity has been making friends with species your council ignored or dismissed. Some of those species have very interesting capabilities. The void nomads can phase between dimensions. The quantum dancers can manipulate matter at the subatomic level. The deep space swimmers can swim through solid metal like it's water. She paused to let this sink in. Your council spent so much time being afraid of species that were already powerful. You never noticed the species that were becoming powerful. You never realized that intelligence comes in many forms, and some of those forms can do things your technology can't defend against. Throughout Corvin space, similar conversations were happening on hundreds of ships. Human captains were patiently explaining to Corvin officers that resistance was futile, but surrender was not required. We don't want to conquer your empire, Captain Rivera continued. We want to free your people from an empire that only serves its rulers. Look at your tactical displays, Emperor. How many of your own worlds are refusing to fight for you? The Emperor looked at his screens. Nearly half of the Corvin worlds were showing neutral status. His own people were abandoning his cause. They're cowards, he muttered. They're tired, Captain Rivera corrected. Tired of sending their children to die in wars that only benefit the ruling class. Tired of being told they're superior to other species while they live in poverty. Tired of an empire that promises them glory but delivers only endless conflict. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The Ethereal Collective's research cities were surrounded by Alliance ships, but the researchers were welcoming their visitors. Many had been secretly working with human scientists for years. The Zephyrian telepaths found their minds filled not with silence, but with new voices. Species they had dismissed as mentally inferior were proving to have rich, complex thoughts that the Zephyrians had simply never bothered to listen to. In every case, the Alliance offered the same choice: join us willingly, or be protected from your own government until you can make a free decision. Most chose to join. The war that was supposed to determine the galaxy's future lasted exactly 6 hours. Not because the Council was defeated in battle, but because most of their forces switched sides before any real fighting could begin. Emperor Kralvash found himself commanding a fleet of empty ships. His officers had accepted Captain Rivera's offer to tour Alliance territories and see how different species lived together in peace. Why? The Emperor asked during his final conversation with Captain Rivera. Why spare us? Why not just destroy the old order completely? Captain Rivera's expression became serious. Because destruction isn't the goal, Emperor. Change is the goal. We want to build something better, not just tear down something old. But we threatened to destroy humanity. Yes, you did. And if you had succeeded, billions of humans would have died. But you didn't succeed, and now billions of your people have a chance at a better life. That's more important than revenge. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "What happens to us? The old rulers?" "That depends," Captain Rivera replied. "Some council leaders are already working with Alliance representatives to transition their governments peacefully. Others are trying to maintain power through force. The first group gets to help build the new system. The second group gets to watch from the sidelines while their people build it without them. And if we choose to keep fighting," Captain Rivera's voice became sad but firm, "then you'll lose, and your people will build the new system anyway. The only difference is how much suffering happens in the meantime." As Alliance ships continued to appear throughout Council space, the choice became clear to anyone with sense. The old order was ending whether the old rulers agreed or not. The only question was whether they would help build something better, or spend their remaining time trying to hold on to a power they had already lost. 6 months after the Council's ultimatum, the galaxy looked completely different. The old crystal palace that had housed the Galactic Council now served as the University of Interspecies Studies. Students from 400 different worlds studied together in halls that had once echoed with threats and demands for submission. Ambassador Chen Wei, now director of the Galactic Alliance, walked through the university's central courtyard. Around her, creatures that had never been allowed in the same room were working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Group of Corvin engineers worked alongside canine pack builders to design new types of starships. Ethereal researchers shared their knowledge with silicon-based architects to create cities that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Even the Zephyrian telepaths were learning to communicate with species whose thoughts moved in ways they had never imagined. "Director Chen," called a familiar voice. Chen turned to see former Counselor Vextar approaching. The once proud alien leader looked older and more tired, but also somehow more peaceful. "Counselor," Chen replied politely, "how are you adjusting to the new situation?" Vextar gestured at the scene around them. "It's overwhelming. 6 months ago, I believed the galaxy needed strong leaders to maintain order. Now I see quantum dancers teaching mathematics to species I thought were barely intelligent. And somehow the mathematics make sense." They walked together toward a viewing platform that overlooked the central hub of what had once been the council chambers. Below them, representatives from hundreds of species were working together to solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for thousands of years. "I have a question," Vextar said. "One that has been bothering me since the day your alliance took over." "Go ahead. How did you know it would work?" Chenwei was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. "We didn't know." "That was the point." Vextar looked confused. "I don't understand." The council system was based on the belief that some species were naturally superior to others. That strong species should rule weak species for their own good. That order was more important than freedom or growth or discovery. They reached the viewing platform and looked out over the hub below. A hive mind collective was sharing ideas with individual thinkers. Energy beings were collaborating with creatures made of solid matter. Species that breathed different gases were finding ways to work in the same space. "But we believe something different," Chen continued. "We believed that every species had something valuable to offer. That cooperation produced better results than domination. That freedom to try and fail and try again was more important than maintaining perfect order." "But you couldn't know that would actually work," Vextar insisted. "What if you had been wrong? What if chaos had resulted instead of cooperation?" Chenwei smiled. "Then we would have learned from our mistakes and tried something better. That's what intelligent species do. They experiment, they adapt, they grow." Below them, a group of formerly primitive species was presenting a solution to the energy crisis that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Their approach combined technologies that the Council species had never thought to mix together. The Council's mistake, Chen continued, was thinking that avoiding failure was more important than achieving success. You created a system designed to prevent things from going wrong, rather than a system designed to help things go right. Vextar watched as the energy presentation concluded to enthusiastic approval from species across the intelligence and technological spectrum. 6 months ago, I would have said those species were too primitive to understand advanced energy systems, he admitted. 6 months ago they were. But intelligence isn't fixed. It grows when you give it room to grow and challenges to overcome. They walked along the platform, observing different groups at work. In one corner, former enemies were collaborating on medical research. In another, species that had never left their home systems were helping to design exploration vessels for the galaxy's outer regions. What about the species that refused to join the alliance? Vextar asked. Chen Wei's expression became more serious. Some are still trying to maintain the old system in their own territories. They're welcome to do so, as long as they don't try to force other species to follow their rules. And if they do try to force others, then they'll discover that the alliance is very good at protecting its members. But mostly they're becoming irrelevant. Why would any species choose isolation and stagnation when they could choose cooperation and growth? They reached the end of the platform and looked out at the stars beyond the space station. Ships from dozens of species moved in peaceful formation, carrying goods and people and ideas throughout the galaxy. I need to ask you something else, Vextar said. Something personal. Chen Wei nodded for him to continue. Do you hate us? For what the Council tried to do to humanity? Chen Wei considered this carefully. Hate is a waste of energy. You made decisions based on what you believed was right for the galaxy. You were wrong, but you weren't evil. We threatened to destroy your entire species. Yes, you did, and that was wrong. But destroying you in return wouldn't have made it right. It would have just created more destruction. Vextar was quiet for a long moment. In all my years on the Council, no species ever responded to our ultimatums the way humanity did. Most begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. Some fought back in anger. But humans just got to work. That's what we do, Chen agreed. When faced with a problem, we solve it. When faced with an enemy, we try to turn them into a friend. When faced with an impossible situation, we change what's possible. As they talked, alerts began flashing on displays throughout the space station. But these weren't military alerts, they were discovery alerts. A joint expedition of Alliance species had found evidence of an ancient civilization in the galaxy's outer rim. Technologies and knowledge that could benefit everyone. Under the old system, Vextar observed, the Council would have claimed that discovery for themselves. The most powerful species would have taken what they wanted, and everyone else would have gotten nothing. Under the new system, Chen replied, everyone shares in the discovery, and everyone contributes to understanding it. The result is better for all of us. More alerts appeared. A medical breakthrough that could extend the lifespan of dozens of species. A new type of engine that could make interstellar travel faster and safer. An art form that combined the creative traditions of 100 different worlds. It's working, Vextar said with wonder in his voice. Your system is actually working. It was never just our system, Chen corrected. It's everyone's system now. Humans just helped get it started. They watched as representatives from the latest discovery expedition began arriving at the station. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together to unlock secrets of the ancient civilization. There's one more thing I need to know, Vextar said. The Council gave humanity 30 days to surrender or face extinction. But you responded in 72 hours. Why didn't you use the full 30 days? Chen Wei's smile became slightly sad. Because every day we delayed, more people suffered under the old system. Every day the Council remained in power. Species were being held back from reaching their potential. Every day we waited was another day that the galaxy couldn't begin healing. So you rushed into a war you might have lost? We didn't rush into war, Chen replied. We rushed into liberation. There's a difference. As evening approached on the space station, the day's work began to wind down, but the collaboration continued. Species that had never trusted each other were making plans for tomorrow's projects. Former enemies were sharing meals and ideas. What happens next? Vextar asked. Chen Wei looked out at the stars where Alliance ships continued their peaceful missions. Next, we keep growing. Keep learning. Keep proving that cooperation is stronger than domination. Keep showing the galaxy what's possible when everyone has a chance to contribute. And if new threats arise, if other powers try to challenge the Alliance, then we'll deal with those threats the same way we dealt with the Council. Not with destruction, but with transformation. We'll show them that joining us is better than fighting us. As they prepared to part ways, Vextar had one final question. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Council had chosen differently? If we had welcomed humanity instead of threatening them? Chenwei paused at the edge of the platform. I think about it sometimes, but I don't regret how things worked out. The Council's ultimatum forced the galaxy to confront the choice between the old way and a new way. And the galaxy chose change. She looked back at the former counselor. Besides, if the Council had been reasonable from the beginning, we might never have realized how unreasonable the old system really was. Sometimes it takes a crisis to show people that change is not only possible, but necessary. As Chenwei walked away to attend another meeting with Alliance representatives, Vextar remained on the platform. Around him, the space station hummed with the energy of hundreds of species working together toward a common future.